You know the greatest danger facing us is ourselves, an irrational fear of the unknown. There's no such thing as the unknown. Only things temporarily hidden, temporarily not understood.
Captain! Jim!
I'm pleased to see you, Captain.
I should have done this a long time ago. So, 5-card stub, nothing wild, and the sky's the limit.
It is the unknown that defines our existence. We are constantly searching, not just for answers to our questions, but for new questions.
Maybe it's not the destination that matters.
Maybe it's the journey.
There are 400 billion stars in our galaxy. We've only explored a tiny fraction. We have a lot of work to do.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Dust Jacket Radio. I'm your host, Jacob Valdez, and I'm here with...
John Glaze.
Yeah, there you go. I caught you off guard there for a second.
And really, it's good. We have a fun episode. We got two guests today, so I'm really excited about that. Not desk. We've got one desk, only two guests. So we've got two writers from... We're doing an episode on Star Trek today.
50th anniversary episode, strictly Star Trek information. And today we have our guest, Jack Trevino, and Toni Marberry, right?
Marberry.
Marberry, okay.
That's okay. I get called so many different variations of that.
So we're happy to have y'all guys here, and we're pretty excited. So hopefully we spend some fantastic time with y'all.
Well, thank you for having us.
Oh, absolutely. So you guys have been working on a new project in the Star Trek universe, I know. And you've had a movie recently released, right? Or is that...
It was fan-made.
Fan-made. Oh, I'm sorry. It was a fan-made movie that you were working on, right, Jack?
Yes, Star Trek Renegades.
Yes. Okay. And you actually got some of the original cast members from...
Yes, we did. We were able to get Walter Koenig and a whole slew of other stars. There are just so many of them. But they're intermixed with new characters and new actors. So we want to do a different take on Star Trek, a little darker. And so we created some characters that were able to do the things that the original characters on the original series were unable to do because they were held back by the Prime Directive, which prevented them from interfering.
Okay. Cool. And before we even get far into that, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, Jack?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. We could probably...
Worked at the research center here in San Antonio for 42 and a half years, and never really got into writing until later on. Star Trek, The Next Generation had open submission policy, and so I submitted some spec scripts. And because at work, Star Trek here in town showed on Saturday, so on Monday morning in the lunchroom we would talk about Star Trek. And the first couple of seasons, to be honest, they weren't that good. I didn't think they had found themselves, that they didn't know what kind of show they wanted to be, whether they wanted to be the original series, that they want to branch off and find their own identity, which they finally did in the third season when Michael Piller came on board. So we would sit in the lunchroom and we would talk about, we could write something better than that. And then I just happened to, this is back in like about 89 or so, 90. And the internet, there was no internet. So all of your Star Trek information you'd have to get from magazines like Starlog or any of these, science fiction magazines. And I read something about Star Trek having an open submission policy. And I called Paramount Studios and they took my information down and they sent me a packet, and it was basically the script format. And if you followed their format and wrote a script, they would read it. So I submitted 2 scripts over the course of a couple of years, and both got rejected. But the second one that I submitted it came back with a lot of dog-eared pages, and I could tell a lot of people had gone through it. So I was somewhat discouraged, and my wife said, don't give up, just keep writing. And then she saw our local Parade magazine in the paper, and they did an article on Toni and her writing partner at the time, Donna Crummins, and how they had sold the concept to Star Trek. So my wife said, why don't you call her? Because she was working at a local news station. And I called the news station and I contacted Toni. And she said, yeah, I'll talk to you. I just wanted to find out what she went through, shared experience of what you needed to do to actually get your foot in the door.
Awesome. And then, Toni, how did you get involved in Star Trek before you even met Jack here?
Well, again, I was skeptical when I heard they were redoing it because I grew up on that. Even though I was about 5 or 6, I watched it every Friday night with my dad. And we actually, at my station in Beaumont, aired this when it just came out, and I strung it up one day and watched it, thought, got possibilities. And we moved over to San Antonio, and they killed off Tasha Yar, and that was kind of the thing that triggered it, because my friend and I were very upset about it. It's like, what the heck?
I thought she had like a meaningless death. Like, why?
It was just like, like a backstop. And again, you had a strong female character and gone. And so we started coming up with ideas. And again, like Jack, she said, hey, they take open submissions. We can do this. Now, of course, she lived in Mississippi, and I lived in San Antonio, and we didn't have she had a computer, I did not. So we came up with an idea to bring her back. And so she would type it on the computer, I would write my part longhand, mail it, she would put it all on the computer, mail it back. It was just a process.
Yeah.
So we finally got a script together, and we went to a Star Trek. She says, we have to go to this convention in New Orleans because I think her name was Lolita Fat Joe, was one of the writers at the time. No, I'm sorry, she was the script thing. It was Melinda Snodgrass. She's also a sci-fi writer. She was going to be there, and said, we need to talk to her. So we went ahead and booked a flight, went there, found out she quit, but she sat down and talked to us, and another young man, and just saying kind of things, saying, look, this is what we do. We go through it. If it doesn't look right, we toss it. I mean, we don't even look at it, and all this stuff, and gave us a couple of hints. So we went ahead and submitted in September, and we just waited. And she ended up calling like in November, and somebody says, oh yeah, it's on a producer's desk. And we're like, oh my God, didn't think about it. And then she calls me up, we gotta go to a Star Trek convention in San Antonio because one of the producers is gonna be here. So she flies in and we go, and sure enough, the guy goes, oh yeah, we're getting ready to make some decisions. And one day I was cooking, thought it was a telemarketer calling, picked up the phone, and they're asking for me, my kid's on my leg screaming, and then when they said, we're from Star Trek, it was like, oh my God, kick the kid off, and,
I'll fix the arm later. Just
honey, start supper. But yeah, they said, yeah, we really liked your story, and would you like to pitch? And I was like, well, what is that? And she says, you get on the phone, you could come in, you throw out some ideas. And of course, we've never been to Los Angeles, so we made an appointment to go out. And at the time, my boss at Channel 4 was a Star Trek fan, and he was great. Like, he gave me the time off. No
Awesome.
problems. Yeah. And so we went up there, and we did our pitch, and they didn't buy anything, but they said, hey, we'll talk to you, better luck next time. So we got that next time thing, not see you later, don't call us. So we just continued pitching. And we would schedule sessions, and I might have to take a long lunch. And I'd tell my boss, "Hey, can I take a long lunch? Go home. We'd do a
nice
call."
Well, how often you can say, "Hey, I got to go talk to Star Trek"?
I know, I know. It was really unreal. But so finally, we pitched the next phase, and they ended up calling and saying, "Look, somebody else pitched something kind of similar. We want to merge the stories together." So they just bought the concept and merged it together. I mean, it's different than our story. They took elements from it. They took elements from this other one. and created that one. And, we still got some money for that, no residuals or anything like that. But, we were able to.
Did you get credit for it, like story written by, or?
No, not for a concept.
No?
No, that didn't happen till I paired up with Jack.
Okay.
And again, phone calls started once that article came out. Because my boss said, I hope you don't mind, but I called Jeannie Jekyll and kind of told her what happened. And, that's where that came in. I was like, okay. And I got so many phone calls from people, thinking I had this big in. It was like, no, I don't. They don't know me from Adam. But, Jack sounded really sincere and nice and kind of not crazy, because some of them actually did sound crazy. And we just sat down and talked, and we just kind of clicked. And my other writing partner kind of didn't want to pursue Star Trek. So
can you let our listeners and viewers know, like, did you ever feel, I know you felt kind of discouraged when they tell you that so many no's, but did you take it, like, did you dwell on it for long, and you're just like, you know what, all right, on to the next story?
Well, some of the stories you kind of think, oh man, this is it. This is the one. And, it is kind of disheartening, but my philosophy has always been, you're not going to score if you don't shoot. So we would come up with 10 ideas and start paring them down, and they would let us go because someone said, oh, you only get 10 minutes. Well, when I went originally with Donna, we got 45 minutes. So, I feel that they were interested and they liked our stuff. And the same thing when Jack and I went out, we never felt rushed. We never felt get out. They listened and everything. And, it took a couple of pitch sessions, and we didn't sell for Star Trek, but we made friends with Renee and Chavarria, and he was really nice, and, talked to him about moving over to Deep Space Nine, and he said, I'll see what I can do. Because we had pitched, I'll just go ahead and say, we had pitched actually Little Green Men for Star Trek The Next Generation, where, Riker Picard had to fix the timeline because he's Ferengis, but that time was just going to be, Ferengi 1, Ferengi 2, whatever.
Yeah.
And they were already doing Time Zero. So they said, we can't, we really like that, but we can't.
Yeah.
And
I think it kind of fit Deep Space Nine a little bit better.
You know
yes,
what?
It
yeah,
did.
Because definitely Quark and Rom and Nog, they sold it. They were really terrific in that. So, but yeah, we just kind of clicked. And
for those fans that don't, when she said the next phase, that was an episode of The Next Generation where Geordi and Ensign Rowe, they thought they were dead because people would pass through them in the ship. They were on the ship. Nobody could hear them.
Yeah.
They couldn't
we got
communicate
lots of
with
questions. Why they go through the floor straight through. I didn't write that part.
I wanted to ask you guys, you said you had just written basically two scripts before you started talking seriously with Star Trek. Is that correct? Submitted only 2, or?
No, I submitted that one with Donna.
Yeah, with Donna.
I was kind of like, they knew who I was, and I brought in Jack as my new partner. And they were okay with that. And
I kept hounding her. I'd call her up and I'd say, what about this? What about this?
He had good ideas. Definitely good ideas. And it just kind of, we'd sit and, finally, after I sold the first one, I had to get a computer. That wasn't going to work. And yes, there's many hours we go to each other's houses and just be on that old DOS. Ugh, I hate DOS. But we'd be doing that stuff and
Notepad, because there was no Word.
Oh yeah.
Microsoft Office or anything.
Yeah. But
what was the name of that program that had the blue and the green screen?
Oh God, I still have floppy drives from that, and I can't think of what it is.
They used to have the old Office programs that you would run on the old simple ones. I'm trying to remember what the name of it was. It was WordPress or something.
Yeah, I think so. Or
it was
something
like that.
It was something like that. It was Word something, I think.
Publisher or something. But it was an old Word. It was a processor of some kind.
Yeah, it was a processor.
So how was the process in creating Little Green Men? How was it when y'all decided to be like, all right, this is what we're gonna do? Which I took that episode in so many aspects. I felt like, to me in that episode, I felt like it was a change in the Ferengis.
Okay, so you're talking about the Deep Space Nine one?
Yeah.
Okay, because that one actually came out of the blue because I was at work and my husband called me and says, you need to call Star Trek right now. They just called. So, of course, call my boss. Can I call Star Trek? Yes. So they were telling us they were buying Indiscretion. And afterwards, he said, it was Renee too. And he says, "Are you sitting down?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "We're also buying Little Green Men." I was like, "What?" He says, "We're adapting it for Deep Space Nine." And he says, "We want y'all to write the story."
Awesome.
And that's when we were freaking out.
And I loved it because I think y'all did a great job. I like I said, when I watched it, I was telling my wife, because we both watch Star Trek, we love it, and I was telling her, like, I like it because, you know, the son, I felt like he's going to make the difference in making the Ferengis a better, you know, people have a better view of the Ferengis now because the son's joining Starfleet, and I always felt like that was a key point and change in making history. Because I don't think there was too many Ferengis in the Starfleet to begin with, were they? Or I think he was the first one.
He's the first.
Yeah.
Just like Worf. That's why Worf and Nog kind of bonded.
Yeah.
So I found, did y'all take that in consideration when y'all wrote it? Because you're like, all right, you know what,
Well, we can't forget that the script itself was written by Robert Wolfe and Ira Behr, the executive producer and another producer. Robert was another producer, so they did a magnificent job writing the script.
They made it more of a genre of the throwback to the sci-fis, but because they gave us sample stories and said, you know, this is kind of what we're looking at when you write a story, about 10 pages. So we did Indiscretion first, and they kept a lot of it, but there were some major changes.
Well, because it was...
My change is, did he kill a girl in your story?
No.
Well, in
the
our
daughter.
Story,
well,
the whole point of it was he was pretending he wanted to find his daughter, and Kira's all, "Oh, that's great, you're such a swell guy." But when she turned and she saw she was a half-breed, she realized at that moment he wasn't here to save her; he's here to kill her. But they kind of changed that aspect of it. I think they equated it to the Searchers.
Yeah.
Because she learned early on that was his motive, like in the Searchers.
Yeah.
And stuff. So, yeah, they didn't keep as much in that, but you don't care. I mean, you're just happy and you want to do better. And then we had a couple of weeks to do Little Green Men, and they kept a lot more of that. They actually kind of just, I think they just really added the genre stuff and made it more of the 50s sci-fi.
If you go back and watch that episode again, all the characters, their names are science fiction stars from the B movies back in the 50s. So look at their names of all the characters and their movie star names, the actual movie star names.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, see, Nurse Garland, my dad's name was Garland. He always thought, Dad, I got you in there. Nurse Garland's after you. But,
that is so awesome.
Beverly Garland, Faith Dominique, Carlson from Richard Carlson.
And let our viewers and listeners know that right now we're talking about Deep Space Nine for all our Star Trek fans out there. And basically, these 2 episodes are pretty amazing. I think they're pretty good. Yeah. And I think because of so many small twists in them and making the difference. And actually, these 2 episodes changed, I think, a lot in the Star Trek universe. Because, like I was telling John, like the Cardassians were known for me as being like, all right, all warrior type, like Spartans. The weak will get killed and so on and so forth. And still with the Ferengis, it's all about themselves. But I felt like the sun was that shine of, that one gem, and that, all right, here, just because they're bad, I'm here to be like, you know what? Even though they did this, I'm still going to join Starfleet and represent our race.
Was that the original 3 Little Green Men script, by the way? Or you...
I'm sorry?
Was that aspect of the script written into the Little Green Men? That was your script that you wrote? You said Little Green Men was the Ferengis, right?
Yeah.
Right. I think... Didn't you come up with them having the ship from the cousin, and that's how they were going to take them to Starfleet?
No, that was
That was them?
Because they have, even though they had individual standalone stories, they had continuing arcs that were going on, and one of them was Nog wanting to join Starfleet. And it really worked right into, it was a reason for them to be on a ship,
going to Earth.
Toward to Earth. So a lot of things just fell into place.
Okay, great. Yeah, so Nog is just a good character, it seems like. Did they invite you on set, by the way, when they were filming? Did you get to make creative input on the writing and stuff?
Oh no, they told us not to say anything.
Oh, okay.
I said don't say anything. Just say hello to everybody, because they had everything. They had schedules, and we wanted to take a crack at writing the script, but they said it's a tremendous amount of pressure to get the script written in the short period of time that they had. And they have writers. They said, that's why we're here. We know how to do this. We're looking to the fans for ideas. And when they find a minute ago, you said the gemstone in the group, they would find these gemstones of stories, and then they would take them and they would run with them. Ira Bear personally wanted to write Little Green Man because, again, he felt there was a connection to the old John Wayne movie called The Searchers, where he was looking for his niece who had been taken by the Indians and converted into an Indian. And during the old West days, if that happened to you, that a woman, you had to kill yourself, or you're
tainted, kind
you
of.
were tainted. And he didn't like that taint on his family, so he was gonna kill.
Oh, you mean like on Indiscretion, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
and
yeah.
They asked me, did you all take this idea from The Searchers? And I said, what's The Searchers? I think I had seen it. I did it. What is Aleppo moment? But I remember seeing it as a kid, and I must have been about 8 or 9. But I just remember John Wayne up on the screen. But we went, and I said no. We came up with it on our own, and then they said no. It's The Searchers. Just keep saying that because the executive producer loves The Searchers. And we went, oh yeah, it's The Searchers.
Yeah. Don't.
So that's so he wanted to write the script.
Okay.
Nice.
But the way it happened, I was taking some college courses at the time, and I always like to have background noise. So I'd have the TV on, and I was studying, and they had an episode of Unsolved Mysteries, which were Robert Stack would bring in a whole bunch of people, eyewitnesses to certain things, and one of them was the Roswell, the incident at Roswell, and they were talking to the widow of a Air Force pilot who had allegedly flown the bodies of the crash, the aliens, back to, was it Edwards Air Force Base?
Yeah, that's the one close to Groom Lake.
And on his deathbed, he told the wife that he had seen them, and she was describing what he had seen, and she said they had big heads, they were short, sunken eyes, and I was like, wait a minute, that's a Ferengi. And I called her up and I said, hey, the Roswell aliens are the Ferengi. And so that's how that started. So again, yeah, we pitched it as a story for the next generation, and then Renee told us to adapt it. He said, watch Deep Space Nine. Of course, we were already doing that. Yeah. And just adapt it to them. So we said, well, it has to be Quark and Rom and Nog. But if you go back and look at the incident, they were bodies of aliens. They were dead. And so I brought that up with Robert Wolf. I said, how are we going to do that? They died. And he says, who says they died? Where's the bodies? And I was like, oh yeah. He said, this is TV. We can do whatever we want.
So we're going to step away from Deep Space Nine. So the next project y'all ended up working on was, and you, Jack, was the Gods of Men, right?
Actually, Toni had gone off because she had some family issues, and she said, hey, Jack, I don't want to hold you back. So I didn't do anything for a while. And then I teamed up with another local writer, Ethan Kalk, and we worked with a producer out in Hollywood, Sky Conway, and he wanted to do a 40th anniversary tribute film, and he represented a number of the Star Trek actors, Walter Koenig, Nichelle Nichols, George Takei, and he wanted to do something for these. They were the second big three, so he wanted to do a story, and he had an idea of what he wanted to do, but he didn't know how to do it. So he wanted it to take place in the Mirror universe, and for those of you that aren't Star Trek fans, it was an alternate universe where everybody's evil, and he said it would work. And
I think that the Mirror universe originally was in the original series.
Was in the original series,
and then they did another episode of Next Generation.
Right.
And I think even Voyager did a Mirror. I think almost every series
did it on Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
Deep Space Nine. They did about
one, where Spock was like.
He had a beard.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You had a beard, and then you're evil. So
I think even Voyager did one, right?
Well, I think it was Enterprise. They did a two-parter.
Enterprise did one, and Deep Space Nine.
And Deep Space Nine.
I could
So
have
all
sworn
in all,
Voyager did one because you remember they were conquering the Delta Quadrant with Voyager because it was so advanced, and they had extra armor on. I'll look it up later, but
yeah, I don't.
Now you can make me pull out my Voyager.
Yeah.
No, but what I found amazing about that is it kind of gave me closure about Charlie. Because I watched the original series, and you have this one kid with Q-like powers just disappear after that season. I'm like, what? Like, you're not gonna go back for him, or you're just gonna leave him there? So I found that really amazing, and how y'all tied all that into that.
Well, we brought
universe.
We brought him in because it was a 40th anniversary tribute, and we did write it as close to the style of the original series as we could. So it wasn't the way television shows were being written at that time, and that was around 2006 when we started to film that. So
if I remember correctly, Charlie was the second episode, which was the first episode of the permanent cast without the cast changes of the captain.
I believe so.
Yeah, because they had Captain Kirk that was his first time being there with Charlie.
And we actually spoke to the original actor that played Charlie, Robert Walker Jr., and he was interested in doing it, but he was scheduled to have double knee surgery, and so he said, I'm going to be in a wheelchair for like 2 or 3 months, and so he was not able to do it. So we brought in William Wellman Jr.
He kind of looked like him.
Yeah, William Wellman Jr. is the son of William Wellman, the famous director who directed a lot of movies. In fact, the first movie, I think, to win an Academy Award, I think it's called Wings, which was filmed here in San Antonio, Randolph Air Force Base, was directed by William Wellman, his father. So he grew up in Hollywood and was friends with a lot of big stars. And he was on Deep Space Nine. He had some small roles, and Sky got a hold of him, and he was very interested in doing it.
So, my question is from the concept of the story to production, how long was that time frame, and what did you have to do to prepare yourself for the first day of production?
It took about a year and a half because you always want to improve the story. We actually sent the first draft of the script to a Star Trek person that is in the business that works with Star Trek, and he sent it back and he said it's not any good. And we thought about it, and we looked at it, and we said he's right. So we went back and we made a bunch of changes and tightened things, and it came out a lot better. So to all you out there that are writers or want to be writers, if you get criticism, don't take it personally. Always use that as a means to improve upon your product. And we always did that. We looked at it and we challenged ourselves. Can we make it better? And because if you're a writer and says, no, that's it, I can't do anything other than that, then you're going to have a script or a book that's going to sit on your shelf, and you may get something done with it, but the chances are, now that's not to say you should compromise and change the story drastically, but always look upon criticism as constructive criticism. So yeah, it took about a year and a half. And,
oh wow!
And we actually sat down with Walter, and he had a lot of ideas. And at first he didn't understand what it was because he really hadn't read it. He said, "Yeah, I'll do it." And then after he got into the script, because Walter's character was Sky wanted to have Walter, Nichelle, and it was going to be George Takei, but at the last minute he couldn't do it. So we thought we were done because Sky had 3 characters. He wanted somebody representing the military, someone representing the peacemaker, and someone representing the rebel. So he had already pegged Walter to be the rebel and Nichelle the peacemaker, and George Takei was going to be the military. So he said, well, we need those 3 characters. And I remember Sky had told me that he was friends with Alan Ruck. And I said, what about Alan Ruck? And Sky was like, what do you mean? I said, well, we could bring Alan Ruck in to the equation. He goes, I don't understand. I said, well, Alan Ruck was in Generations. And in the movie Generations, he was somewhat of a buffoon, and he got blamed for the death of Captain Kirk. And I said, what if Uhura and Chekhov brought took him under their wing and said, look, it's not your fault. Whoever was sitting in the captain's chair that day, those events were going to happen. Captain Kirk lived the life the way he wanted to.
Yep.
And that actually made it into that line made it into the movie. And so he talked to Alan. He said, hey, you wanna turn your character into a hero? And he said, yeah. So that's how we got Alan Ruck into it. And
nice.
And it changed the dynamics of the story. And I think he did a brilliant job. And so we got input from all the actors. We wanted to work with them. If they had ideas that they wanted to try to incorporate, we were willing to do that. And we sat down at dinner one of the nights, actually about the second night we started filming, and Nichelle had a lot of ideas, personal things that she wanted to say, and we put those in there. So it was a bottle show. We were fortunate enough to have access to sets of James Cawley up in upstate New York, who was doing his own internet series at the time called Star Trek New Voyages. And we redressed them to be we changed instead of a mirror universe, we just created another timeline, and that's why Charlie was brought into it.
Okay. Well, Charlie can be anywhere if he has Q-like powers.
Yeah.
That's always a debate. I always look in forums. They're like, was Charlie Q? Or was Charlie not? Was he something different?
We tried to avoid that just because, some things are better left
alone.
And, it's because that way everybody that thinks he was, they can be happy, and those that think he wasn't can be happy.
Yeah. So, I know you've been doing other projects for Fan Made and so on and so forth, but are you planning on submitting a story in for Discovery if it continues on for a second season? Or
sure.
I know they're filming the first season right now, right? I think it's in production.
I don't know if they've actually started filming because I haven't heard any casting news.
I haven't heard any casting, and they pushed back the date.
Oh, okay.
It was going to be January of 2017, and now it's May of 2017. They have have assembled quite a impressive list of writers and producers. So.
In Brian Fuller, one of them?
Brian Fuller?
Yeah, because we talked to him a lot on Voyager.
We pitched to Brian Fuller.
Are y'all debating on contacting your own contacts to see if y'all can get one of your stories on?
Well, I saw Rod Roddenberry at Star Trek Las Vegas. I was able to get in for one day, and he was on his way to something. So I just kept walking with him. You only have 30, 45 seconds, and I did find out that they're not taking any pitches the first season. They want to do it all in-house. So that's actually pretty good.
I think that's what they did anyway with the Next Generation.
Yeah.
Because they got to get it established, get the Bible going. But, again, we can pull out a bunch of old... We kept them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I know, I have mine.
That's another thing for writers. Don't ever throw anything away.
And we can go back and, see what happens and what stories could possibly work. But I'm not sure if this is before Next Generation or after.
I think it's before the original series. I want to say it's around the time of Captain Pike, or maybe a little bit between Captain Pike and Captain Kirk.
I'm sorry, I'm not a big Enterprise. I felt that they...
No, not Enterprise, I'm sorry. The original series. Between the Captain Pike and the original series. So like 5 years before Captain Kirk took over the Enterprise.
I really just wish they would move on. I feel like this is like Star Wars. Don't go back. Keep going forward.
Yeah.
See, my roommate in college loved the Enterprise series. He really liked that.
I just felt they took liberties with the timeline. I mean, I think that's why I like J.J. Abrams' Star Trek, because I was like, okay. But I like that he created a whole new, timeline that doesn't mess with the original Star Trek, and it can do whatever it wants and kind of not offend Star Trek fans. Mm-hmm. I thought he was very smart doing that. But Enterprise, that one just, creating the Xindi and all this stuff that never happened.
I'm sorry, I just moved that
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
That just really bothered me with that one. So I couldn't even get through all of it.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. I just, some people, my roommate did really enjoy it because I guess he enjoyed the whole aspect of things too.
Character-wise, I liked the characters. I liked the interaction. They had good chemistry.
But they should have done like an alternate timeline thing, you think? Or?
Not even an alternate timeline, but kind of maybe fill in the gap and show us what was going on before they got to Kirk, kind of along the lines, you know.
Well, I think that's what Discovery is going to be.
Well,
what went on before Kirk took over the Enterprise,
we'll
and
see,
so
but now
you might
are we
see
gonna have
him.
a Xindi problem with Discovery?
I don't know.
Did that happen?
So
I don't know. I'm not writing.
Let's jump back to Deep Space Nine, and so let's talk about tell us a little bit, if you can, share the story of the one that didn't get produced.
The one that got away.
Yeah.
Well, after we pitched, they let us know about a little secret. When they mentioned the Searchers, and they said that go back and look at old movies. That's where we get all our ideas from. And he said if it's an old enough movie, there's no copyright infringement because it's been out there that long. Well, I've always liked 12 Angry Men, the original, with Henry Fonda, and all those actors, and I just thought it was wonderful. And I thought, and I think I was on a jury panel. And you know, I thought I was in the movie 12 Angry Men. I wanted to get an easel and a paper and draw the scene, the crime scene, and went through the whole thing. And then I was talking to Toni. I said, when you're in the jury room, you start to find out things about these people that you've been sitting with that you didn't know. And I said, well, what would happen if all the characters on Deep Space Nine had to serve in a jury room type setting, and all of a sudden all these things about each other started resurfacing? And she said, yeah. So we pitched that idea, and it was called Quorum. And the idea was, in 12 Angry Men, Henry Fonda was going to convince everybody that the defendant was not guilty. But in this one, I think it was Garrick, was going to convince everybody that the person was guilty.
Okay.
It was the opposite.
Well, I think it's because it was in their, I guess, embassy, so technically they're on foreign soil, and their laws were different. Like, I think for them, guilty isn't like us. It's the intent of the guilt. If it was for a good reason in their society, you might be guilty, but there is no punishment as long as your intent was.
I've always felt like Deep Space Nine was like, I know it's deep space, so they're kind of away from. There's so much crime that happens on that base.
It's kind of Wild West.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Wild West of Star Trek.
But that's why I think I like that one the best, just because when you watch Star Trek, you know, they do their thing, they move on, and you kind of like you said, whatever happened to Charlie X? I don't know. You know, but with Deep Space Nine, a lot of their consequences come back because they can't go anywhere.
Yeah, they're stationary.
Right. And I kind of like that because that's life. Some things come back to bite you on the butt, you know, and they had to deal with that. So I kind of like that one the best because I felt that was more true to life, I guess. The other one's more, I guess, fantasy. You know, you can do this and move on and not look back.
And there was a line from Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, when Sybok is trying to get McCoy and Spock to reveal their inner pain, and we see out things that they've held inside for years, and then he asked Captain Kirk, you know, these are your friends. Didn't you know this about them? And he goes, no, I didn't. And they had been together for years, and there's still some things you don't know about people. So we wanted these things to come out in this jury room, you know, setting. And so the producer said, come up with secrets. Everybody's got a secret. And so we came up with a secret for every one of the characters. And I think a number of those secrets went on to become in standalone episodes.
That's cool.
We actually called up and said, wait a minute, that was one of the secrets that we had in Quorum that wasn't produced. And he goes, yeah, we paid you for it, so we can do whatever we want with it. And we were like, well, that's true. Yeah. So
TV, such a crazy business.
We did get paid. We did get paid for it. We just didn't get residuals.
Yeah, because it was never produced. Yeah.
Okay. Clever.
Oh, we can tell you a lot of stories about what goes on behind the scenes. Some good and some not so good. We'd rather
So
not.
y'all been on set, right, of Deep Space Nine?
Yes, we went to the Deep Space Nine station.
We got to LeVar Burton was directing because you wanted to follow him in the bathroom, and I said no.
I actually got to meet LeVar Burton not too long ago in Houston. He spoke there for the Texas Library Association. Great guy. I got him to sign a book and say a couple words for my wife.
Yeah, he was really nice. He was. I can't remember what he directed Indiscretion.
Yes.
Yeah, he did.
Yes, he did.
But it was funny because he was like, when he was speaking to us, he was like, I still need residuals from Apple because I was the first one with an iPad as the chief engineer on Enterprise. He was just joking around.
That's right. He was directing the Bar Association.
Yes.
And we were with production assistant Jacques Gravitt.
Yeah.
And
we got to meet Robert Picardo.
Robert Picardo
is awesome. I would love to hang out with him.
Max Grodenchek.
Yes.
He said we can't guarantee who's going to be on set that day because we crossed over to the Voyager set and we went to the bridge, transporter room. We took pictures on the transporter room.
Yeah, I got to see some, the magic, but what was behind the window.
Behind the windows, it's just, what was it, a
Black
felt?
curtain with glitter.
No, don't ruin it.
Well, it's going to ruin my imagination.
It looks so real, though.
Pieces of glass.
Oh, we were on the Deep Space Nine set. We walked around.
And it's all wood. It's just wood. And I don't know how they do it. They make it look like shiny metal, but no glass anywhere.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So, off set, who was on set when y'all were there? Was O'Brien on set?
Oh, no. Well, that's who was on set that day.
Yeah.
Is he really nice off set?
Who?
O'Brien?
Oh, I've never met
no.
Cole Meany.
Yeah.
I've never met him.
Okay.
But who was on set on Deep Space Nine was Max Grodenchek,
and
Chase Masterson,
and Robert Picardo.
Robert Picardo was on set.
Was Robert Picardo really nice?
Yeah, he was very nice. He told me that
he has a good bedside manner.
That his name was actually Robert Picardi, with an I, and that his father wanted to change it to Picardo. So I met him some years later, and I said, "Well, it's Robert Picardi," and he looked at me, and I said, "You told me that story about 5 years." He goes, "Oh yes, I remember." And he was in Renegades.
Okay.
We asked him to be in Renegades, and he said, "Well, I don't want to play the Doctor, because obviously I've aged, and the Doctor wouldn't age." So we wrote him in as Louis Zimmerman. So
he's the
creator of the Hulk. He's in it, and we paired him up with Sean Young, who we were able to get as well from Blade Runner.
Yeah, I was kind of scared about if Voyager kept going. I'm like, he's eventually gonna age as a hologram.
Well, that's why Brent Spiner doesn't want to play Data anymore either.
I'm kind of glad they killed him off too, because I was like, I think he'll be in every universe. I felt like the being hero and bad guy. I think Data was just too powerful to the point that I don't think he'll have any enemies to take him out. That's my opinion.
Toni looks like she's weighing in on that.
No, I don't know. I think Hugh could take him.
Yeah, that too. But
yeah,
I think it would have made the Federation a little bit too more to where it needs to be, and then I think it was a good balance of getting rid of him. Because he is a great asset to have on a ship.
Oh, yeah.
He gets things done like that. So, well, man, we're so happy for y'all to come by and talk to us. Do y'all have anything going on in the future?
Well,
if y'all want to share?
We're working on a script. All we can say is it's a dog. Non-Star Trek. It's a dog story. So
okay.
Hopefully we'll get something done with it.
Well, we'll bring it up if you email us. We'll bring it up during our show whenever we can when it comes out. We'd love to do that.
Thank you.
Do y'all have any books in mind? Y'all decided to switch over to books anytime soon?
We kind of tried that, me and Donna, a long time ago. It was very hard to do it when you're doing scripts. You're writing visual, and it's a whole different style, and it's, to me, a lot harder to write a book than to do a script. So, but I mean, to anybody that wants to write scripts, the best thing to do is go buy old scripts and look at the formats. And well, of course, now they have all those word processing
Yeah, they have the auto-generate stuff.
Yeah.
The internet's revolutionized it all.
Final
honestly.
draft.
But I think
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing. If they want to see that you know the format and
Sorry to interrupt you, but and that's a good point. You know, you gotta do your research. Are they still? They're not taking fan-based submissions anymore for new episodes. Typically on the Star Trek stuff, are they?
they might on season 2.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they didn't do anything on the first season of Star Trek: The Next Generation, and you know, I don't even know if they did for Deep Space Nine.
What's that?
Take submissions the first year. Because I can't. I mean, to me, it makes sense to.
Yeah, usually the first year
have them
they've already
establish
outlined.
everything.
You know, when you come up with a series, you have to have the Bible that explains all the characters, and you have to at least have like 13 stories that you're going to tell. So that's why you don't need, you know, to have outside writers at that time. It's when you start to fall back on with Star Trek. All the stories have pretty much been told, so it's very difficult for the writers there, especially when they're producers and they have other duties, to clear their mind and come up with, you know, new ideas. So, but usually the first season it's probably done
I mean, I
in-house.
think too, as a writer, like a fan writer too, you need to see what they're doing, and you need to get to know the actors and how they interact, because, you know, that's how you can do pairing up stuff. Because when I originally pitched with Donna, we paired up Troy and Worf because there's such, you know, contrast, and that's why I do think it's important that you watch the show, see how they interact, see who's got chemistry, see what chemistry you might propose that they're not thinking about. So yeah, I mean, I'm just hoping they do open it up for season 2.
And on a different question, I wanted to ask you guys just real quick, because I know we're kind of running low on time, but did you guys ever read any of the Star Trek novels? Because I know there's almost like 200
Oh my
of them,
God, I
200
have.
of them.
I have hundreds.
Oh, okay, good. So would you say those are a good source of inspiration for anybody who's thinking about writing an episode? Or
That's what I was gonna ask too. Is like the best advice you can give someone who wants to jump in and write a story for a show, in general.
Get a hold of a script. Even if it's not the script of the show, you need to get the format down. And if you can't, I mean, I haven't bought a script in years, but we bought scripts, and we know the show, we know the characters, and you know, that's kind of what you do, and you have a good story, because a good story will work in any genre you put it. You know, because when you peel all the sci-fi or whatever genre you're in, the story's the heart of it. So I would say, you know, make sure you know what it's supposed to look like, you know how to do the script, and have a, you know, good story.
And you, Jack?
I just want to plug a couple of things.
Let's talk about your projects. Yeah.
Well, before I forget, there's also a web series called Star Trek Continues. I don't know if you've seen that or not, but a person, an actor, Vic Manona, wanted to continue on the original 5-year mission.
Vic Mignogna is a very famous voice actor.
Yes, he is.
So I know
Edward something from...
Edward Elric from The Fullmetal Alchemist is who you're thinking
Yes.
of. That's his famous character, yeah.
Yes.
But he's done thousands of characters. I have his autograph. I met him.
So
he's a really nice guy.
he's done, I think, about 6 episodes of the original characters, Kirk, Spock, McCoy. And I helped co-write the first, the pilot episode. It's called Pilgrim of Eternity. And they brought back Michael Forrest, who played Apollo in the original series.
Yeah.
So I would recommend, they're all free. Anybody can just look up Star Trek Continues to start with.
If I'm not mistaken, Vic lives up in Dallas, right?
Well, he's actually, I think his mom lives in Houston, but they were also from Pennsylvania, and then he also lives in Los Angeles. And he's very, very close with a lot of the Star Trek actors. Actually, Marina Sirtis is the voice computer on Star Trek Continues.
Nice.
So I want to plug that. And then you were talking about books. I haven't written any books, but my uncle, Peter J. Flores, just published his first novel. He's 93 years old, and he's lives here in San Antonio, and it's called Hurrah for the Class of '05. And
I think I told you about this.
Oh, okay, you did.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Hurrah for a class of 05, you said?
Yes, and it's on Amazon, so
okay,
it's only
Nice.
like $12 or something. So
we'll check it out.
go out and buy a copy and make my uncle happy.
Absolutely.
He's actually got 2 more books. It's a trilogy, so he's already got that.
I think it's McPherson, right? He's publishing them.
Who is?
McPherson?
Yeah, Robert McPherson.
Yeah. We'll actually have him here next week.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So
that'll look forward to. And then just to real quick to the listeners who wanted to watch the episode we were talking about earlier, Indiscretion and Little Green Men are season 4 on Deep Space Nine.
Yes.
Episode 4 and episode 7, I believe, right?
4 and 7 or 4 and 6? They're really close together.
4 and 7, I think.
4 and 7.
Mm-hmm.
4 and 7, I'm pretty sure. And then those are on Hulu. You can watch those there. So that's what I did. I thought they were both great. So.
Yeah. So all you Star Trek fans out there, I really hope this was fun because I had a great time.
Yeah.
Going on behind the scenes because this, watching the show is one thing, but I always wanted to know like what is the process of getting that one story out there for each episode. So. We want to thank y'all so much for coming and sharing your time with us.
Keep writing, all you guys out there, guys and gals. Keep writing.
Mm-hmm. Keep writing. And then one, just real quick before we finish up, what was your favorite? Do you have a favorite Star Trek novel that you've read, or either of you?
Well, for me, it's Deep Space Nine, and now that you asked me, I cannot remember.
Oh, it's always.
I have it on audiobook. It's so good.
I liked Imzadi.
No, I like Imzadi too. Oh my God.
Yeah, it happens to me all the time when John puts me on the spot.
I know, it's always.
It's just John.
What do you like to read?
Fallen Heroes.
Fallen Heroes.
Fallen Heroes Deep Space Nine novel. It's very good.
Okay.
And I like the old original series, Price of the Phoenix.
Oh, I have that one.
Okay.
Have that book.
That's an old book.
Price of the Phoenix and Fallen Heroes. 2 great recommendations.
John, you want to close this out?
All right, guys. That is going to be the end of today's show. Thank you very much for tuning in. And we'll look forward to seeing you next week. And until that time, please keep reading.
Well, space is there, and the moon and the planets are there, and new hopes for knowledge and peace are there. And therefore, as we set sail, we ask God's blessing on the most hazardous and dangerous and greatest adventure on which man has ever embarked.